A Boeing 747 was perfectly ready for takeoff on the runway. Amidst dense fog, the pilot advanced the thrust levers, turned on the headlights, and the aircraft had crossed its takeoff speed, a speed from which returning is nearly impossible. But at this very moment, a shadow began to emerge from the fog. This shadow was another Boeing 747, on the same runway, coming in the opposite direction, now only a few meters away. What happened next is difficult to even imagine. The question is, how did it come to this? What was air traffic control doing? And what was the single small mistake that led to the most dangerous accident in aviation history? This tragic tale occurred in the Canary Islands, Spain, and is known today as the Tenerife Airport disaster. Welcome back, viewers, to History Unveiled's videos. This story begins a day before the accident, on March 26, 1977, when Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, took off from Los Angeles Airport. It was scheduled to land in New York to pick up some passengers, and its final destination was Las Palmas, a city in the Canary Islands, across the ocean. This was a chartered flight, and thus fully booked, mostly with elderly passengers who intended to enjoy a cruise ship in Las Palmas. Las Palmas is the capital of the Canary Islands, located about 100 kilometers off the coast of Morocco, and is Spain's southernmost point. This place is quite famous worldwide for its tropical weather. However, in 1977, behind the beautiful facade of the Canary Islands, lay a political tension. A group called MPAIAC was advocating for the independence of the Canary Islands from Spain, and for their campaign, this group often resorted to violence. It was one such violent event that initiated this dangerous accident. Pan Am Flight 1736 picked up passengers from JFK International Airport in New York and departed for Las Palmas Island. Its cabin crew included 56-year-old Captain Victor Grubbs, 39-year-old First Officer Robert Bragg, and 46-year-old flight engineer George Warnes, along with 13 flight attendants and 380 passengers. These were all the details of Pan Am Flight 1736, which was now cruising over the Atlantic Ocean. Now, let's turn to the other aircraft that was to be involved in this accident. At Amsterdam Airport in the Netherlands, KLM Flight 4805 was preparing. This was also a Boeing 747, and it too was bound for Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. Its cockpit crew included 50-year-old Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, 42-year-old First Officer Klaas Mewers, and 48-year-old flight engineer Willem Schroeder. It carried 11 flight attendants and 235 passengers. After boarding, KLM Flight 4805 took off from Amsterdam International Airport. Both aircraft were now en route to Las Palmas Airport in the Canary Islands. During this time, at Las Palmas Airport, two men approached the terminal building and left a bag outside a flower shop before disappearing. It was a bag with a bomb equipped with a countdown timer. Precisely at 1:00 p.m., a phone call was received at the reception of Las Palmas Airport. The person on the other end identified himself as being from the MPAIAC group, the same group mentioned at the beginning of the video, and stated that bombs would explode at Las Palmas Airport within the next 15 minutes. Airport staff immediately sprang into action, evacuating the entire Las Palmas Airport within 15 minutes. Their panic turned to terror when, exactly 15 minutes later, a loud explosion occurred. This blast caused a large section of the terminal building's roof to collapse. Consequently, all activities at Las Palmas Airport were suspended. All flights were canceled, and those scheduled to land there were diverted. A short while later, KLM Flight 4805, arriving from Amsterdam, was nearing Las Palmas. However, air traffic control informed them about the airport explosion and instructed the flight to land at Tenerife Islands Airport, which was 110 kilometers away, after an additional 25-minute flight. The KLM captain landed on runway 30 at Tenerife Airport at 1:38 p.m. At precisely the same time, Pan Am Flight 1736, arriving from New York, was also nearing Las Palmas and was diverted to Tenerife Airport. At this point, almost all flights were being diverted to Tenerife Airport, as it was the closest available airport. Soon, Tenerife Airport became increasingly congested. It's important to note that Tenerife Airport is a small airport located in a mountainous region, very close to the Atlantic Ocean, with an elevation of about 2,000 feet. The area is surrounded by high mountains, and as a result, the moist Atlantic winds, when they strike the mountains and rise, quickly cool and transform into clouds. This phenomenon is quite common and sudden here. When the Pan Am and KLM flights landed at Tenerife Airport, visibility was perfectly fine. However, visibility suddenly decreased due to clouds. When clouds were on the runway, visibility would drop to 300 meters, and then, in another moment, everything would be clear up to 2 kilometers away. It was currently uncertain how long they would have to stay at the airport. Passengers were deplaned so they could refresh themselves after the long flight. During this time, KLM Flight 4805, which was to return to Amsterdam, decided to refuel its tank right there, so as not to waste time refueling at Las Palmas Airport once it reopened. They had just begun refueling when news arrived that Las Palmas was reopening. Both flights reboarded their passengers, but due to KLM's refueling, the taxiway was blocked. Tenerife Airport is a small airport with only one runway, one taxiway, and one apron where the terminal is located, as you can see in this animation. Such a high volume of traffic, especially jumbo jets like the Boeing 747s, was highly abnormal. Due to KLM Flight 4805's refueling, Pan Am Air could not exit the terminal onto the runway. They were told to wait near the terminal until KLM's refueling was complete. At 4:45 p.m., KLM's refueling was finished, and the captain began preparing to move off the taxiway. Since the apron was full of other aircraft, which also blocked the taxiway, the controller instructed the KLM pilots, who were parked on the far west side of the taxiway, to taxi on the runway itself to the extreme east end, make a 180-degree turn, and prepare for takeoff. As KLM 4805 began to taxi, the controller instructed Pan Am Air to follow KLM on the runway, but to exit onto the taxiway at exit C3, as KLM 4805 was to take off from this very runway. Visibility was quite low and worsening with each passing minute. KLM 4805 taxied across the entire runway, reached the eastern end, made a 180-degree turn, and positioned itself for takeoff. Pan Am Air's pilots also began to taxi on the runway, but due to the fog, they could see exits C1 and C2 but missed exit C3. Since exit C3 led back to the apron, they might not have seen it at all. Additionally, Tenerife Airport lacked sufficient sign markings for runway exits on the tarmac. As Pan Am Flight 1736 was crossing C2, the captain of KLM 4805 requested takeoff clearance from the control tower. This is where a series of back-to-back confusions began. Due to the fog, the control tower could not see either aircraft, nor was a radar system installed at this airport. At this moment, the control tower began to tell KLM which route they should take after takeoff, but this message did not give them permission to take off anywhere. However, KLM understood that they had likely received takeoff clearance, and the KLM captain replied, "We are at takeoff." It's still unclear whether he said "we are at takeoff" or "we are taking off." In response, the control tower said, "Okay." But after a gap of a few seconds, the control tower clarified, "Stand by for takeoff. I will call you." This was a very crucial message, clearly stating that they should not take off yet. The investigation involved examining the cockpit voice recorders of both aircraft, and it was from these that all the details you have seen in this video were discovered. The investigation team concluded that this accident was caused by a chain of events. First, the bomb blast at Las Palmas, then KLM refueling its tank at Tenerife Airport and blocking the taxiway. If they hadn't, Pan Am Flight 1736 would have taken off earlier, followed by the sudden decrease in visibility and Pan Am missing the C3 exit. However, the investigation team held the crew of KLM Flight 4805 responsible for the accident, because after all, they continued with the takeoff without permission, even though the flight engineer had stopped the captain just 5 seconds earlier. The Tenerife Airport disaster proved to be a wake-up call for the entire aviation industry. After this accident, many changes were seen in the aviation industry. Call signs were changed, their rules were updated, radar systems were made mandatory at all airports, and holding points and indicators on runways were declared essential. Today, there are 2 airports on Tenerife Island. The one where this accident occurred is the Northern Airport, while a new airport has also been built in the south, which has a lower elevation, and where visibility is not affected by clouds and fog. We hope you will greatly like and share this History Unveiled video as well. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next fantastic video.